Here's what's coming up tonight on the box seat. We recap Friday's incredible racing action, and we're joined by Cambridge CEO David Branch to celebrate the success of the night. Whale is back for more catch and release. Michael Guerin is along to spark a few discussions. And we look forward to Taylor Mile Night at Alexandra Park. That's all to come on the box seat. Well, we all made it back to Christchurch in one piece post a moment that I'm sure we'll all cherish for a very long time, and that was the victory of Leap to Fame in the race by Betcha. We were all in awe, and I'm sure that you at home were as well, and we're going to talk about that as well as the TAB Trot, and we'll look forward to a really exciting week, particularly out of Alexandra Park. Taylor Mile Night from there, and a pretty decent card to come as well from the Addington Raceway. Greg O'Connor and Brittany Graham join me in the studio. Britt, your first time in the studio with us, so welcome. Leap to Fame, we were just all in awe of his performance, and now that you've had some time to reflect on it, looking forward to chatting about it with you tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. What a night it was on Friday night. Thoroughly enjoyed being there, and I think that they've got the mix right now when it comes to, you know, those two big feature races and also a nice undercard to really amp people up, getting excited for those features as well. But I'm sure you're about to talk to Greg O'Connor around his thoughts on the night as well. We've been lucky enough to watch him on a few occasions live, and I'm glad that he lived up to expectations for everyone else who was seeing him for the first time.
Greg, evening to you. You've seen some very good horses in your time of both codes, and you've seen them on track live, but that one must have been right up there.
Yeah, it certainly is. Hi to you guys. It was a great night at Cambridge Raceway. Dampened down a little bit by the weather, but gee, the track played beautifully, Matthew. And well, the stars came to play. Chris Vinocio with his trotter. We'll talk about what it was able to achieve, and RC Phoenix, and of course this great horse, Leap to Fame, arrived on our shores and delivered a knockout blow to the Kiwis again. We'll
dive into the race by Betcha very shortly. Let's take a look back is what I was trying to say, on the week that was.
I don't care, go on and tear me apart.
Leap to Fame, the legend of Larry's landed in New Zealand, and he's got the race by Betcha. RC Phoenix in front. Queen Elida tries very hard, but RC Phoenix for the TAB Trot of 2025.
Yeah, it's amazing to come to New Zealand. Been watching these races here for a long time, so it's great to come and win a good one.
Why do you love harness racing so much?
It starts with my grandmother, who had her first horse in 1958. And my father passed away when I was 15, and he left in his will, he said to my mother, he said, "There's a few horses there, you make sure my boy takes them on." Here we are.
Better's Anvil travels nicely. Grease Lightning comes strongly. Better's Anvil, Grease Lightning. Better's Anvil and Grease Lightning. Better's Anvil. Romeo Foxtrot, Castana, High Energy, and Lord Popinjay. Romeo Foxtrot tries. Romeo Foxtrot, and what a night for Romeo Foxtrot to win on to. Congratulations to all behind the scenes here that have put a wonderful night together, and most of them in the ownership of Romeo Foxtrot.
That's special. I can see you've got the shakes up. How much does it mean, Dave?
Yeah, quite emotional really. Like, it's been a week for us all, and yeah, we only sort of I only saw the end of that really, so with everything else going on, I've taken my comms out, so the team are probably calling me about something, but a lot of the team share in that and the fun of racing him, so what a boost, and yeah, fantastic.
Ahokara Achilles ducking on the passing lane here, and Ahokara Achilles and Kimberly Butt to come through and get the win. On the night of champions, Nikki Chilcott, one of the champions of the raceway, and she's got 700 driving successes.
700 wins for you as well, a very special milestone.
Oh, too right it is, yeah. I probably haven't been worried about it too much, but people have been starting to give me a bit of jib, so kind of nice to get the monkey off the back, I guess.
It's Mr. Love by half a length on Sunny Sister. Mr. Love doing enough, and that'll be the first for the training partnership of Greg and Ben Hope, and he's done it easy enough.
At the 50, it's the Rennie and Benny show. Renegade wins for Benny Hill.
Great tussle. Andretti gets his nose in front. Fugitive trying to fend him off. Andretti without you, and Mark Purden with the aid of the TFS Horse Transport passing lane takes the first semi-final of the Sire Stakes for the 3-year-old fillies.
Electo at the 50 doing enough. Electo put the cue in the rack and it's all over.
Coming after it, Buster Shaw out wide and battling on another Floozy as well, and Nephew poking through, and so too is Billy Blinks. Buster Shaw out wide, Nephew on the inside, great finish in the first. Oh, I think Buster Shaw in a photo here.
It was encouraging enough last time out, so you would have come here with, you know, a little bit of expectation that he could run well at least.
Well, yes, yeah, I didn't get too excited because I'm still learning, but had a lot of help with some of the trainers there. Andrew Scott, I must make mention, and Lance, so they've been really good to me, so that's been a help in preparing them.
How many gallopers have you got at the moment?
Just 2. Yeah.
Looking to extend the stable, maybe?
Well, if I was younger, I would, Brenda, but yeah, I've left my run a bit late, but I'm enjoying my hobby.
Yes, he's too good, isn't he? Mr. Mark Purden, he can do it all, as we saw from him across both codes there over the weekend. Greg, I just get the feeling there, listening to him at the gallops, he's just a little bit more relaxed than when we see him at the trots, and you get that real sense of enjoyment from him.
Yeah, absolutely, Matthew. He wants to perform in another code, and he did on Saturday, because that is hard to do. To go to Ellerslie, Buster Shaw had a few starts, he's worked him out, he got the win. They tell me some of the trainers at Matamata look at him sideways when he does 2 or 3 rounds as opposed to, you know, the normal one that they do, or when he's finished doing that, he chucks the lead on them and takes a trotter out and jogs a few laps with them, but he's a master. He continues to deliver, and he did again at Ellerslie.
All right, let's kick things off with our review of the week. Leap to Fame in the race by Betcher. Britt, you've had a few days to kind of indulge in everything that's happened and reflect. All of the reports I'm seeing is this was one of the greatest performances we'll ever see.
Just being there on track on Friday night, everybody you talked to was in awe of what he did. Everyone was looking around at each other thinking, what have we just seen? For him to work as hard as he did, and I love the intent from Grant Dixon. As soon as he got up outside Don Hugo, you could just see him sit forward, Leap Fame some more leather and really put it to him. It's remarkable that so many great horses in behind him were off the bit and chasing so far from home. 1.6 seconds off the national record on that track, which, to be fair, was in magnificent order, but it couldn't have possibly been spot on. Was remarkable. The only horse all night to win off the pegs. So he's back home in Queensland already. He flew back. Grant Dixon met him in Sydney and took him home to Queensland. He should be arriving, if he hasn't now, very, very shortly. So it's 12 weeks this weekend until the first round of Inter-Dominion heat, so he's got a bit of time to relax, but he's the sort of horse that they like to have a few runs into him before, I guess, a series like that starts. So I'd expect to see him early June getting ready for an Inter-Dominion, but he's going to be mighty hard to beat on his home track.
Greg Grant was quick to, I guess, thank many people after the race for the driving instructions. Get up there, eyeball Don Hugo and see how you go, and it paid off.
Yeah, absolutely it did, and he learnt himself from what happened in the Miracle Mile by doing that. You could see at the 600 Don Hugo was under pressure. He was thinking, wow, what's going to come from behind? Chase a Dream was that horse, and he said he heard him, but he couldn't quite get to him. A terrific performance by the second horse. Go back a fortnight, he wasn't even going to be in that race, so a turnaround of considerable note from him. He won't be in the mile this week, but he will be back for the Messenger. But have a look at the specimen that is Leap to Fame, delivering and putting it to Don Hugo. I thought he was very brave, Don Hugo. He was in the early burn. They went 40 seconds, he copped Republican Party and obviously Don't Stop Dreaming. So he had all of that pressure, then Merlin got there, then Leap to Fame got there. So I still thought his run had a lot of merit. Great run, Merlin. He was all out at the 600 metres, picked himself up, the defending champion. Terrific effort there. Pin Seeker, he's arrived in free-for-all company. He is going to be a threat in many of those races, particularly later in the year. He'll actually go to Rangiora to a country cup Sunday week, so bit of a drop back from $1 million race. He should be competitive. He doesn't go right-handed, that's why he's not staying in Auckland. Duchess Megxit's gone for a spell. She'll have a couple of months out and to freshen up, but it was just awesome to be there and watch this superstar of Australasian harness racing grab his 50th win.
And I guess, Britt, the other thing, and we heard Kevin Seymour mention it after the race, the importance of this and the fact that the Kiwis have now been able to see him. Of course, his mum was good, his brother's pretty good, and his mum being a fool for a reason, there's no reason why he won't come over here and do a good job as a stud.
I guess the only challenge is being by Bettor's delight. I guess it just lessens his pool of opportunity a little bit. But in regards to, I guess, all the assets that he has, and somebody asked me actually, he's not probably what I envisioned him to be as a horse. And I think that's why he's been, touch wood, such a sound horse right throughout his career. He's so much more athletic than a big, heavy stallion. For him to have already won 50 races and to keep backing up, my feeling is that he'll race through the remainder of this season and probably next season. That might be the end of him, but he's hoping we can get another really strong 12 months out of Leap to Fame, and he's hoping more so that he's back in November.
All right, we will put the race by Betcha behind us and we'll turn our page. In fact, we do have some stats to look at if we can around Leap to Fame before we turn the page. And I guess, Greg, this will highlight how wonderful he really is when you put him in amongst those half a dozen other horses.
Well, all things being equal, if he does what we think he will do and wins the Inter-Dominion, he'll go very close to Blacksafake, who was the benchmark, no question. I'm the Mighty Quinn won 3 Inter-Dominions. Lazarus, we know, won everything, both here and then went to the States and did it there. So he is going to become the greatest stakes winning pacer on all time in Australasia, and I think he deserves that. I mean, I know it's hard to compare because Blacksafake wasn't racing for that sort of money. Most of those races were $500,000 back there. We're now in a different era, Brittany.
It's interesting too because, say, if he'd won a Eureka, which of course is the richest race in the world, that he didn't, he would already be up and surpassed that. And to be fair, a horse like Blacksafake didn't race as a youngster, and we know how much money is available as a 2-year-old, but Leap to Fame didn't race a lot as a juvenile either. So he's won the majority of his money when he's been up against the big boys. He's certainly one of them himself.
I see the first half a dozen of them home broke the record, Greg, so when you bear in mind a horse like Merlin, Zachary went for the hood at the 800. I said to you when we were on track, I said, Merlin's flat, like he's gone. And for him to pick himself up shows what a horse he is as well. And then he's going to back up this week.
Yeah, he is. I spoke to Scott Phelan about that. He said he's bounced off it really well. So he had a big chance to win the Taylor Mile last year, sat in the trail and wasn't able to win. He has to come from a wide front row draw, but they're pretty happy where he's at.
We have RC Phoenix. He came here last year for the TAB Trot, wasn't able to pull it off, put together a great run though, and 12 months later he returns. Here's the start, Greg, Oscar Bonavina and a full-blown gallop.
Yeah, well, it's been a talking point post-race, more than pre-race, about the overcheck coming off, and he just got wound up, and Mark had no other choice than to just let him gallop to the outside and then get him back down trotting. What that did, of course, was mean RC Fingers got to the fence before his biggest rival, the Locomotive, and he's very hard when he gets to this position to get past Brittany. He hasn't often got there. Chris obviously had the confidence and felt he'd made this horse into a horse that could do this on the biggest stage.
Well, it was nearly now or never, wasn't it, in that sort of race? To be fair, and I know Oscar galloping didn't help anyone, but I don't think the Locomotive was ever going to cross him. He came out really well, RC Phoenix, and he looked to me as though he was always holding. In fact, Queen Elida left the best out of any of them, and by a considerable margin as well. But once he found the front, it was always going to be very, very hard for his rivals because he can just sustain that speed for a long way. And any horse that can sit sort of 3 wide or off the pegs in feature races and win as he does before, or as he's done before, when he finds the markers, he was always going to be really dynamic. So he's back in Melbourne. He's going to be readied for the Inter-Dominion, so that's his next target. Queen Elida, how good was she? She just, whenever the big money's on offer, she rises to the occasion, and she proved quite a problematic drive for Chris Alford as well. She got very keen and wanted to run in and out and all over the place, so she's got 3 more runs here in New Zealand before she retires. A few of the other Aussies, well, I'm Ready Jet just never looked comfortable, so I don't know what the future holds for her because she's on her way to retirement as well. Not as promised, his race was over before it even started. He got very keen behind the gate himself, so he was never going to really be a factor thereafter. In the Locomotive, I thought he was really brave again now, so it's 1 from 14 when he hasn't led, so he really needs to find the front to be his most dynamic. They'll be hoping that he can find the front in Sweden, which is where he heads at the end of this week. He's going to have a busy few days upcoming on his sojourn across the other side of the world.
What a tour that will be. What did you make of the other couple of Kiwis, Greg? Muscle Mountain, Bet and Win?
Muscle Mountain, okay. He had a perfect run. I don't think he's racing at the same level, but he got past $1 million. Magic from it. And Bet and Win's still getting there. Like, I don't think the wet track helped him, and getting back in the field didn't help him. The one horse I want to talk about, and I spoke to Tony Barron about it, was obviously Queen Elida. He joked with me that none of us really gave her a chance, and he admitted she had underperformed in many of her recent starts, but like Brittany said, she always delivers at the highest level. She's now our greatest winning stakes mare in Australasia. That's a remarkable record, and she has been so genuine all the way through her racing. When you look at that list, you know that she has done some amazing things because she has been at the top for a very, very long time. And we saw her race here as a 2-year-old, didn't think much of her. She's gone over there. Brent Lilly's done a magic job with her. And, yeah, to get to $1.1 million is quite remarkable.
A couple of honourable mentions there. Pride of Petite, who wasn't a Kiwi bred, USA, and there was a couple that just missed out. Horses like Allegro Agitato, the record that she put together through the early 2000s as well. But she deserves to have over $1 million in the bank now, Queen Elida, and you see Kiyang Zahara there halfway down, over 600k in the bank for it. Just quickly, Britt, before we move on, the race was quite an emotional race afterwards, obviously with the story around Dr. Alistair McLean, father-in-law of Chris Spinocio, who passed away in September. And we saw a lot of emotion from Duncan McPherson as well.
It's beautiful to see how much it meant to so many people. Duncan, the slot holder. So I guess his connection wasn't as close, but you still thought that it was, judging by his emotions. And he's really backed the Spinocio team as well since Chris went out on his own. So that meant a great deal to him. Ash Haynes and the entire ownership group of RC Phoenix. Chris has just done such a mighty job of looking after this horse. He's always shown ability. Now we're getting to see the best of it, but I love that emotion. If you're not excited about winning a $600,000 race, then maybe you're in the wrong game, and I love when people allow it to be seen.
Yeah, it was great to be part of it, just letting it all happen. I think the pictures told the story there on Friday night. They were our 2 big slot races. We had some decent performances on the undercard. One of those was Better's Anvil. It wasn't an easy watch, and it probably wasn't the easiest of drives either, Greg. I reckon he might have been looking at the light shadows maybe on the inside of the track, but boy, this horse has got a motor.
I mentioned on the night David White had told both Brittany and I at Stonewall on the Wednesday this horse was ready to win, and from barrier 8 they drove him pretty aggressively. Tim Williams wanted to get to the front, didn't think it was a very fast front line. He was right. Yep, he's looking around, his ears are pricking there. You got to remember he did run 3rd behind Marketplace in the NZB Harness Million, Brittany, at his previous start, and didn't have a whole lot of luck. Got the Chocolates was the horse everyone expected to probably lead. That didn't happen, so it changed the shape of the whole race.
His first time leading in a race, and you could tell, judging by his mannerisms, but that's something to go by heading forward, that he has that new weapon to draw on, and probably there was a lot more happening there on Friday night than would be the norm, but he's a very special talent. He's a lovely style of horse. He just looks like, a 3 and 4-year-old going forward that we're going to be able to follow. Grease Lightning and that gate speed that he has and that we've now seen is going to hold him in really good stead, and I guess the lack thereof forgot the Chocolates is going to make life a little hard for him.
Greg, the bookie's got a win with, beside me getting beaten, Without You was rock hard fit as you'll see a horse on a race course, and she won accordingly, and they didn't muck around either. 151.8 the mile rate.
No, Arafura got the lead off Without You, and of course the Boom horse beside me got herself off the fence and round outside Arafura, and with what we'd seen, we probably thought she would run past them here. But then we heard the time, Matthew. That was sensational on that track at that speed. She dashes up the passing lane here, 151.8. These fillies are going to be in for some terrific battles in the upcoming month or so, but it was without use race on Friday night.
What did you make of it, Brett? The winner, second and third horse, do you think, with Beside Me, having it being the first race, she's really had to hustle and bustle in? We'll see her improve off it?
Absolutely. It's a really strong group of fillies, and you add Stella Rouge into the mix, and I think they're going to have some great battles. Without You's clearly the progressive filly, and she's got really good gate speed as well, which is going to hold her in good stead. But when you go back and analyse Beside Me's run, she had to really push through at the start. She wasn't naturally just holding that, I guess, trailing position. Then when that bumping duel happened with about 800 metres to go, it would have had to unbalance her somewhat. Like, it was some pretty serious movement, and then again she had to go pretty well straight away thereafter. Didn't look to handle that last bend 100%. So I think that she had excuses, and we have to remember that she's still very lightly raced in the big scheme of things, and when you look at the style of filly she is, she's only going to get better with time as well.
Right, Oaks next for them?
Yeah, absolutely, and getting up to that 2,700 metres will be right up her alley. She's a big scopy filly, and I'm with you, Matthew. You mentioned it the other night. She's possibly better right-handed, so that'll help.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we'll be looking forward to seeing her head around there at Alexandra Park, and maybe an improved version as well. So that is our race review out of the way. We're going to chat now to David Branch from Cambridge Raceway, and he is with us. David Branch, how are you, my friend? Have you had time to digest what happened on Friday night, not only for you as a part of Cambridge Raceway, but for you as an owner and a carer for Romeo Foxtrot?
Yeah, evening, Matt. Still sinking in, to be honest, all of it. So it was great just sitting here watching all of those replays come back through and still get goosebumps, and seeing the emotion in that of Duncan and Chris. It was, that's what it's all about. And then for us to have Romeo put his hand up on the night as well was just extra special, and something that we couldn't have scripted.
You must be extremely proud, David, of what your team have been able to achieve over the previous 3 years, and now the fourth running of the Night of Champions. It's in the top two harness racing events you've got to go to each year. That's what you set out to do, and now you're there.
Yeah, as you said, just full of pride for the team and everyone. So much goes into it, and people just, unless you're involved in a racing club or that, it's the people, it's the team, but it's their family that are there late nights sweeping and setting tables and putting race books out, and there till midnight the nights before, and missing doing things with their family and stuff. So just incredibly proud of the team. Great to see it come out. Obviously we wouldn't have picked the weather if we could have, but to see it play out how it did, fantastic, and something, as you say, we're just so proud of.
Yep, you were certainly unlucky in that regard, weather-wise. What about figures-wise? You work closely with Harness Racing New Zealand, helping to promote the event. How did they stack up?
Yeah, so initial figures, fixed odds, total turnover was 1.6, down from 1.8 last year. So no doubt the weather has an impact on that, but also we raced on our own last year, and I haven't seen what Addington's figures was, but certainly that would have an impact in that as well. And we don't have the international figures through yet, but we'd expect, obviously, with all the Aussies, that they should be really high as well. So.
Dave, in regards to, I guess, other bits and pieces that I'm sure would have found their way into your KPIs, in regards to, I guess, on-course patronage, I know leading into the night, figures were ahead of what you were hoping for. I was just amazed, and there were people standing out in the rain with their ponchos on. People still came, and I know Kaylee Bell had a lot to do with that, but they were there nice and early.
Yeah. So a big part of that was how we structured the tickets and selling them early. We still haven't hit the 5,000. That's my goal, is to sell out a raceway event. We got close with some of the jewels, and I really thought this year was it with Kaylee Bell, but probably I think our numbers were about just under 4,000. So still a fantastic crowd. But yeah, there's still that
that sold out sign going up on the raceway that we'll be aiming for next year, that's for sure.
Here's hoping it arrives in year number 5. And I love the interest of the Australians. It just seems to be working. The process is down pat. That plane coming in on the Sunday or a few days earlier for the Victorian horses, it seems as though the more that arrive, it's just becoming an easier process each and every year. And if we look at 7 this year, are we aiming for double figures next?
Yeah, well, I think the Kiwis have got some serious work to do in the TAB Trot. First 4 last year and first 3 this year to the Aussies. So, that's what it's all about, having the easy flights, having them be able to fly in and out. Obviously, we want them to stay on, and some of them are for that Auckland Carnival, which is great. But, we honestly couldn't have scripted it any better with those horses that came over, and just a lot of fingers crossed in the lead up that everything was gonna play out how it did, and bring it on next year. The more Aussies, the better.
All right, work hat off, work boots on. David, Romeo Foxtrot, tell us about how that felt on the night. I know you were probably feeling the stress and the vibe a wee bit, but how were you feeling the next day when you were able to soak it in and enjoy what happened?
Yeah, just so proud. I mean, he's just the coolest horse. Some of my team are involved in the ownership, but he's really become an office horse. So quite often, we've jumped in the car and headed up to Alexandra Park to support him. And a lot of his owners are thoroughbred people who haven't owned a horse before, from Wentwood Grange. So, they were all there on the night, and they hadn't been going up to Auckland. So to do that in front of them at Cambridge was just, incrediable. And they haven't stopped talking about it, which is what it's all about as well. So there was a lot of emotion there, I think, just from the week that we'd had, and that was just a massive cherry on the top, I guess.
Yeah, just looking at those pictures there, I don't know if you were sure what you should have been feeling in that moment.
No, exactly. Certainly didn't think the cameras would be on me like that, but just overwhelm, I guess, and for, I talked about we couldn't have scripted any of the big races better. Well, in my wildest dreams, I wouldn't have thought that we'd be picking up that race on the night as well, on a night that we've built.
All right,
super special.
360-something days' time. We'll see if you can do it all again, and hopefully we can get you over that 5,000 people mark. Thanks for your time, not only tonight, but right through the whole preparation and through the year, David, and well done to you and the team with Romeo Foxtrot as well.
Awesome. Thanks very much, guys.
Here's David Branch. Greg, I'm sure that 5,000 people mark isn't a target that they can't achieve. I think the weather's going to play a big role, but as Brittany said, there was just so many people still there enjoying themselves. Red bands out, shoes off in some cases, stubby in hand. It was just I reckon a true blue Kiwi party. Yeah,
and they would have got there. I've absolutely no doubt they would have got past 5,000 because ticket sales had already exceeded where they'd been in the past, and Brittany, the noise was still palpable. You could still hear the roar, particularly when Leap to Fame won. I think it's definitely doable.
I love that the people got involved in the racing as well. And let's be frank, a lot of them were there for that Kaylee Bell concert, but I like the process that they've gone through of, the gate shut at 7 o'clock. If you're not in there to watch the big races, then you're not there for the concert either. And if just 10% of those people or 5% of those people that were experiencing harness racing for the first time come back next week or get a small share in a horse, then I guess what was set out to be achieved has been.
Craig the Whale Thompson, he was there. He was giving us all of the information on each and every race, and he has joined us here on the box seat for what's caught his eye, his catch and release. Hi to you, Whale.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Great to be joining the team on the box set on a Tuesday night. What a night it was. Friday night, Night of Champions night. So many highlights. For me personally, my good old friend Nikki Chilcott, driving her 700th winner at Cambridge Raceway on the last race aboard a pretty aptly named trotter called Crazy. As we pick them up at the top of the lane, you can see in the trail here with the orange and white wheels, Nikki Chilcott sneaks up the inside on a trotter that's not the easiest horse to drive. A horse that actually went round in January in some Monty trials where Michelle Northcott rode to run second in a trial. This one for a good friend. Tim Hall actually worked for White Star Stables early on in his career, and Tim got this one in a beautiful condition, and look at it, pricks its ears at the line, won very easily. Nikki's 700th winner, not easy when you're sitting on 699 for 3 months. It's a fair while between drinks, but got to remember she's only driven 18 races this season, and to get that win, a magical milestone. So well done to you, Nikki. Started sponsoring her in 1995, some 30 years ago. She's now driven 700 winners, such a tiresome worker, and a well-deserved credit to get that magical milestone. Let's get to catch and release this week, boys. I tell you what, the catch, pretty smart 2-year-old by Lazarus. This one was at the Ashburton Trials on April the 5th and was super impressive. Really like the way he goes. This one trained by Greg Payne as we picked him up at the 400 metre mark, and he is off and gone. He's by Lazarus. He's a 2-year-old. He's got a real strong front to him, and he got to the line really, really well and very quick sectionals. He ran home here in 55.3, so he's run his last mile 157. 55.3, 27.9. We know Ashburton's a really quick track, but this is 18 lengths. 18 lengths. Gee, I thought it was super. He is a horse to follow going forward. The 2-year-olds, is by Lazarus, there's not that many around at the moment, and the ones that are going around are doing a pretty good job. So look for him when he makes his debut. He's a nice type in Patriarch. The release this week, well, a horse I've tipped out many times and it's let me down a couple is Better Prepare. It's had 3 starts in the last 10 days. I want to take you to the 30th of March back at Manawatu where it sat in the 1-1 and the white colours came out of the 1-1 at the top of the lane. And to be fair, it kind of just floated. It's a horse with a blue nose roll. It looms up to win. It kind of just not quite puts in. Ends up running 7th of 8. Came back to the Manawatu in the last week, lined up on Sunday at Manawatu. Again, 3 back on the inside, second favourite, got out the top of the lane, David Butcher drive, and it ran 8th of 8. Got all the ability in the world, brilliantly bred, the brother to Jollymont, but he kind of, as a horse, it might be more comfortable being in front and feeling a bit more brave. But when you're taking the short odds, he goes into the release spin this week. As far as best bet of the week, I'm very keen on Runkle Crunch this week, boys. Really like it. A horse that went out favourite 2 weeks ago, was very impressive in winning there. Of course, winning the Northern Metro final, beating Carrera Ombre. Lined up against Better Anvil the other day, clocked it home in 56.2. Its last 800, and it was last at the 8. So I thought Runkle Crunch race 1 at Alexandra Park, my best of the week. Enjoy the rest of the show. Looking forward to being part of the Whale Watch on Thursday and getting your tips for the Taylor Mile.
Good on you, Whale. Thank you. And Little Birdie told me you're not the only one who's got Runkle Crunch as your best of the weekend. So we'll see how good a couple of our team members are on the judgment front come the first race there at Alexandra Park on Friday night. Alexandra Park, of course, will feature the running for the 2025 Taylor Mile.
That took over and shot right away, excuse me, for Frank Cooney. In behind them, 5 lengths away now is Kate's first. OK Raw's finishing well. Out deeper then to Bougainfella, but it's Frank Cooney and excuse me, it's all over. OK Raw's running into second, excuse me, in front. OK Raw chopping it back for excuse me, held at OK Royal. Kate's first is third in the Noel J. Taylor 4-year-old mile.
Excuse me. Well, what a name, Grego, and what a story around her, and I guess you could call it a dynasty, really.
Yep, absolutely, Matthew. 153.5, which back then just never, ever did they go anywhere near that. But when you go through the list of horses that have come via Excuse Me, it is nothing short of remarkable. Adore Me stands out, Dream About Me, Hans Christian, the list just goes on, and it's gone different branches as well.
Michael Guerin is back on the show with us again. Michael, you yourself have had time to digest what happened there on Friday night. Leap to Fame, one of the best performances that we'll ever witness, I think.
It was great, Matt, wasn't it? It was very visceral. It was actually really cool to see somebody actually attack a horse over the last lap and say, well, if I'm going to beat you, you're going to have to beat me at my own game. So I'm going to be as rough and tumble as I want, and and let's see who cracks first. We don't see a lot of it in this country. We see obviously quite a bit of it in Australian racing. We mentioned about a month ago that the Australians might come here and kick our ass because we have so much uncompetitive open class racing. We have a lot of races where horses sit back and run on. I think we're, at the moment, sowing what we've reaped, to be perfectly honest, or reaping what we've sowed. Basically, we have set ourselves up to be clonked, albeit, yes, it's a very, very, very good horse, a champion. But at the moment, the Australians are toweling us up because their racing, week in, week out, is simply stronger than ours. So, at the moment, Matt, it's an interesting time. Where they won't be, most of them, is Alexandra Park on Friday night. And that's quite jarring when you look at the fields this week, considering it's a Group 1, and how many of the horses who raced in the race by Betcha aren't going to be there. So, made me think, do we, as in the clubs, Harness Racing New Zealand or anybody else, need to look at a way to keep those Australians here? Because the difference between $1 million and $100,000 for the Group 1 this week is jarringly large, but also RC Phoenix has gone home. So I'll put it to you, Britt, first, because you're an Aussie. Do you think a bonus would work? I mean, we just saw Swayze racing around the Carnival of Cups all over New South Wales because of a bonus. Do you think an insured bonus, where maybe it topped out at 500,000 if you could win the race by Betcha, the Taylor Mile and the Messenger, might have changed Grant Dixon's or Don Hugo's people, or even an RC Phoenix for a reduced bonus in the Trot? You think it would have kept him here?
It's interesting because all these horses are sort of going in different directions. In Don Hugo's case, of course, he has to get on another plane to Perth very quickly. But I guess the series that keeps coming up in a lot of these connections' minds is the Inter-Dominion. And as I mentioned off the top of the show, it's only 12 weeks away. So if you do want to give your horse, in the Aussies' case, a break off the back of the Sydney Carnival and those who come across, and there doesn't leave a lot of wriggle room if you stick around. If there was to be a bonus implemented, it would have to be for one and all. It couldn't just be for the Aussies. It would have to be all horses eligible for it. Greg, I think it's interesting because it would have to be of significance now that the Inter-Dominion's worth so much money at $1 million to, I guess, forego an ideal preparation for that for a bonus of some sort. It'd have to come down to how much it was.
Yeah, exactly. It would have to be significant, Michael, and it would have to be available to any horse that was able to do it in the pacing ranks and trotting-wise as well. I think it'd be worth a throw at the stumps. This year, would it have kept these two horses here, Don Hugo and obviously Leap to Fame? I don't think so.
Oh, it's interesting. You think if Don Hugo had won, obviously winning the race, the slot race in Perth, would be worth less than winning the bonus because you have to give half to the slot holder. So would have been tempting. Anyway, we move on from that. I'm hearing the Harness Millions. There's negotiations between, I believe, the club and maybe Harness Racing New Zealand, but more likely New Zealand Bloodstock Standardbred, to move the 3 Harness Million races to Night of Champions. Do we like that? Because that would mean the Trot this week would go there. We would have had the 2 earlier races for the fillies and the boys go there. Do we want to supersize this whole thing up, or does that detract from the Harness Millions? What are your views on that, peeps? Because it sounds like it's a real negotiation at the moment.
Michael, I quite like the way that it was on Friday night. We had the semi-finals. Yes, we didn't have Stella Rouge there, and we didn't obviously have Marketplace either, but we had all the others. I think it's about right at the moment. I can see the mindset behind it, Brittany, and maybe it's worth a try, but if you're putting all of your eggs in one basket, then you're relying on one night, spreading the love around, if you like, between the 2 tracks in the north. I quite like the way it is, but I can see the thinking behind it.
I thought Friday night was perfect, to be fair. There was enough meat on the bone in the other races to get you excited. I remember the first night, it was the race amongst a fairly, I guess, stock standard card of racing. You still need those up-and-coming horses or those different horses to add to it. And I also think if you put too many feature races on one card, they do get lost a little bit. And when we're trying to talk about them, you know, a few days later, there is so much to get through, and some performances don't get maybe the airtime that they deserve, Michael. So what about you, Matt? What do you think about adding those to that night? I was pretty happy with how it all played out. There wasn't much opportunity to take a breath there on Friday as it was.
I'd want to know why why the conversation started, why they would want to move it away from Alexandra Park, and if they have a decent theory on it and they want to let us know, then happily, Michael. But I'm with these guys here. I think Friday night was enough. We had our 2 stellar races. We had an undercard where we were able to gather all the information for those 2 races. You know what it's like working on Karaka Million Night at Ellerslie. It's hustle and it's bustle, and some races do detract away from the others in terms of how much time us as trackside and you as other parts of the media can give them. So if they can give us a reason as to why, and if it's a good reason that they want to do it and we can all have some sort of understanding, then maybe, yeah.
I think it's not to add to the night. I think it's to add to the Harness Millions races. At the moment, they just fall into nowhere. There's a $75,000 Harness Millions Trot this week, and there'll be nobody there. There will be nobody at Alexandra Park. So you say to people, if you want to go to the sales and have these big, incredible wins in your life, and you have a marketplace or whatever the horse you've got to win these races, wouldn't it be cool to have it in front of a crowd? I'm actually not talking about making the night better. I think it's talking about how making the Harness Millions races better, because at the moment, there's no one there when they run them. So we move on. Well, my thoughts on this are pretty well known. I mentioned at the top of our segment. Are we leading ourselves down a pathway with a lot of horses sitting back and running on and not attacking in races, guys, where we are becoming vulnerable to the Australians? I'm not just talking about Leap to Fame. I know Leap to Fame is a champion and an all-timer. But the bottom line is we're getting tooled up in every type of race we put up. Auckland Cup, 2 New Zealand Cups. Last year, the race by grins, thank God there wasn't any really good ones here. But even the horses who did win the race had been racing at Menangle beforehand. Do you guys believe our racing's getting too uncompetitive and too many of our open class races are run at substandard times?
Michael, in answer to that, leading into the New Zealand Cup, often we see a couple of the lead-up races run at pedestrian speed. They're only sprints home. You wrote a great article in the New Zealand Herald on Friday morning, and well done on the coverage as well. It was tremendous for our sport. That horses that had been to Menangle and raced around Menangle, and Brittany, you've been there more times than any of us, it hardens them up, doesn't it? It makes them into warriors in many respects in some of their races, and they learn how to race tough.
Absolutely. It's just a different style of racing there at Menangle. It really is make or break. Some horses it does break, to be fair. Some just can't handle that style of racing. But I guess the writing's on the wall the last few years for last Friday night's race night in particular. The form through horses that went to Sydney had that really strong grounding and then came back. Well, it stood up in spades. Even RC Phoenix, he went to Sydney for the Hammerhead Mile. He ran 4th behind Kiang Chucky, and then he went back for one more run in Melbourne before prepping up. So there's no doubting that style of racing is benefiting horses, but it's going to be interesting as time goes on if we further analyse it, what effect it has on their longevity as well, Michael, because it is rough and tough. There's no doubting that.
It is, but at the moment, we're not rough and tough enough. I think ours are too slow. I think too many of our races are too slow and too many horses are given quiet runs. Anyway, we move on again. I want one name from you both each, and you can play along if you're watching this at home. This is a mid-term report card for the open class pacers and the open class trotters. Brittany, we'll start with you because we'll go beauty before age, those other 2 idiots. Who's the best pacer and who's the best trotter in New Zealand right now?
Well, I think pacer is Merlin. He's got the runs on the board, and his run there on Friday night, and recency bias as always there, was phenomenal when you consider how important it was to be on the marker line. He was doing the workout with Leap to Fame, and I still think he's on the way up. He's, 6 years of age now? So he's still, hopefully has a few really good years still to come. But I think 5 years of age, in fact. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, he's certainly getting stronger. I think he's always been a very fast horse, but what we saw from him on Friday night was that he has strength as well. And Oscar Bonavina is probably in the same boat, Greg. He's been there, he's done that. We know he didn't bring his manners on Friday night, but judging on his performance thereafter, he actually wasn't beaten all that far. I think if he had packed his manners, he would have still been a really dangerous threat there.
Yeah, on a consistency base of point of view, it has to be those 2 horses, Michael. Merlin's the best short course horse, I believe, in the country. and you could argue up to 24, maybe even 26. He won both derbies. And Oscar's just been so consistent over the last 2 years, Matthew, that he missed out the other night, but he'll bounce back.
You're forgetting one horse, and on his record in the last 6 months would have to be right up there, and that's Republican Party. Won the Auckland Cup, won the Invercargill Cup, ran so close in the Hunter Cup. Yes, it was a flop on Friday night, but he's beaten Merlin home in the Auckland Cup. He's nearly beaten Leap to Fame and Swayze in the Hunter Cup. Food for thought, Michael, but I reckon he's right up there.
He might win a third Group 1 in the last 6 months, Matt, coming up this Friday night. I think he's got a great chance in the race, and I think he's over the odds. I'm actually with you guys. Merlin and Oscar Bonavina. I think Merlin is more consistent than Don't Stop Dreaming, who might actually be more talented, but gee, I can't read Don't Stop Dreaming most of the time. And I think Oscar's holding on to the crown because nobody's come for it yet. I think Bet and Win is coming for it, but I tell you what, if Kiang Zahara starts coming back to New Zealand this time next year, we could all be in for a hell of a pounding again, a la Just Believe, because we don't have that many trotters coming through who are really look like they could be champions. But it's an interesting question. People at home, I'm sure you have your opinions as well. But we're going mainly today for the box seat, Merlin, and it sounds like Oscar Bonavina, but to be confirmed over the next couple of weeks at Alexandra Park.
I can tell you one horse that many people at home wouldn't have backed this time last year, and his name was Mark Shard. He blew them away in the 2024 Taylor Mile.
To Kango Republican Party. Merlin through on the inside, and Mark Shard under the arches is flying home. Mark Shard over the top of the Merlin, and Don't Stop Dreaming. Mark Shard, $100 blowouts. Crystal Hackett, Group 1 winner. Second over, it's a photo between Don't Stop Dreaming and Merlin.
It was you taught me living in togetherness, togetherness, togetherness. I am a giant. Stand up on my shoulders. Tell me what you see. 'Cause I am a giant. Our love is alive.
Here's what's happening this week in harness racing. Addington have a midweek twilight meeting on Wednesday, kicking off at 4:30. We head to Winton on Thursday for the Wairio Trotting Club meeting, featuring a 10-race card. Friday Night Lights is highlighted by the Taylor Mile at Alexandra Park. And Addington joins the party with 10 races, featuring the Future Wealth Sire Stakes Aged Trotters Classic. Then on the Sunday session, Methven takes centre stage with the Roseland Racing Drivers Challenge. Catch it all on Trackside and trackside.co.nz. Group 1, Dawson, Harford, Taylor Mile is the first race that we're taking a look at now, featuring Merlin and Republican Party, who are on the quick back up from the race by Betcher. Greg, early tactics are going to be vital here.
Yeah, they are, Matthew, and I think Jollymont will come out pretty hard, as will Sooner the Better. Missed out in this race last year, Sooner the Better, beautifully drawn. Moanga's another one that's likely to go forward. Little Spike didn't get its chance last time. We walked by Faith Brittany, had to come off a long mark at Cambridge last week. And Rakiro Rocket was actually pretty good. We didn't even mention him before in the race by Betcher. He's drawn to follow Jollymont, and if I know anything about this race, on the mark is absolutely crucial. In fact, 3 of the last 10 have drawn barrier 1.
It's interesting, isn't it? The short course, it always throws up some maybe different tactics or different speed maps to what was first thought. Only the 8 horses now with a O'Connor coming out. So I think that certainly assists Merlin. It's never easy to win from the outside gate, but there looks to be enough pressure there early. Sooner the Better is an interesting one. I went back and watched his effort in the Flying Mile in lead up to last week, and he was really shuffly early, like not 100% in his gear. Maybe that was just a one-off, but when you go back and you only have to look, 6 weeks ago, Michael, that he was completely and utterly luckless in a Miracle Mile, Sooner the Better. Then he looks thrown into this race from this positive draw, but the market's still a little bit against him.
Well, the market's very generous for horses like him and Moanga and Jollymont to run top 3 or even top 4 because, as Greg said, marker pegs will be crucial. I think the winner will probably come from one of the big 2, Republican Party and Merlin, because no matter how you speed map this, they don't get into single file over the mile. You never see that unless it's 3 or 4 runners. So one of them's going to be in the 1-1 and the other one's probably going to be in its back. Well, if you could see that at the 400, unless Moanga's had a very, very easy time in front, you would think one of those two probably runs past every other horse in this field. So you can make a case that you back Merlin for 50, 60, 70% of your spend and then back Republican Party. I'll make the case you back Republican Party each way, because I think he's going to be around the 1-1, and I think he's had no luck in his last two runs. The only caveat I have over that is Moanga and Jollymont and those other horses didn't go round in the race last week, and it was a real gutbuster on a sticky track. How they bounce out of that could determine the winner out of this race.
Another horse backing up from Friday night is Queen Elida. She'll go around in the Lyell Creek Stakes, the Lone Star Alexandra Park Lyell Creek Stakes. Brittany, Queen Elida inside draw, the favourite here, has been well backed already. Does she have the gate speed to hold up? If the answer's yes, what does Chris Alford do?
I think she definitely does, particularly on what we saw from her last week. She left super well. This is her first time right-handed, so that's always a little query. And to be fair, she would have been awful
both ways last week.
She was all over the shop, and that's generally when she gets a little bit keen, which she can do when she's a little bit between runs. It was only 2 weeks or so, but they were probably fairly kind to her with the trip across. But she certainly holds the key to this race. In saying that, Greg, I know Chris Alford has always been of the opinion that she's probably a better follower. She can get lost a little bit out in front. So I'm assuming there's only one horse that he'd be interested in handing up to. That's Muscle Mountain. I would assume with Notter's Promise they'll tread fairly warily with him this week. He's got a new driver as well. He's also first go right-handed. But I think Muscle Mountain, I'm going to be with him, to be fair. I think this is his opportunity. Great record right-handed, and I have him finding the front.
Yeah, if he does find the front, this is his chance to get back in the winner's circle. He loves Alexandra Park. Spoke to Graham Dwyer, Matthew, about Notter's Promise, and he said, look, he's come out of that race fine. Maybe he won't be trying to rush up on the gate this time. And I did say to him, Alexandra Park, Michael, I'll come to you with regards to how difficult it is to go there and win first up. They would like to get around nice and safely, because I believe the Rowe Cup will be more up his alley once he gets back to a stand, and obviously the 3,200 metres.
Yes, Greg, if you took a piece of paper and wrote down the names of open class trotters who had won fresh up at Alexandra Park, you wouldn't need a very big piece of paper. Some very, very good horses, like Kukaracha, came to Alexandra Park and got beaten in her first start there. I'm with Muscle Mountain. I think the way he's racing, he's only got about 4 or 5 more races in his life where he's going to get this chance to win. Free-for-alls, mobiles, fire him off the gate, make him feel brave, keep going. Bed knows how to do that. I think they do it this week. If Queen Elida comes off their back and beats him, so be it. But I think it's clearly the way to drive him. And I think $3 is really fair. I'm not sure how the Australians who bet into the commingled pool will be affecting the market close, but that's the tote only. I genuinely think he'll start favourite. So take the $3 now would be the tip from me, and it sounds like Britain, maybe even the whole team.
Greg and Ben Hope with 3 in the race. We wish them all the very best. Well, here's an interesting race. The Harness Million, the NZB Standardbred Harness Million for the 3-year-old trotters. Greg, first up, meant to be, I can't find any trials, $1.85. This will be some performance.
Yeah, he hasn't had a trial, and I did speak to Scott Phelan about that. They wanted to go last Thursday. If you're in that region like we were, Brittany, it was rather wet, so there was no trial for what meant to be. He thinks he's forward enough. They've obviously got higher power in it as well. He was the Class 2-year-old. It's a big ass first up, and he's got a few bigger targets still to come.
It's always interesting this time of year with those star 2-year-olds and maybe a few of the others that didn't have the manners to show their full potential, returning at 3. And a couple from the Wallace Hackett team have had a run or two under their belt. So what will that mean for their performances? I'm a big fan of Final Approach. I was lucky enough to see him there at Cambridge a fortnight ago. He put it all together and he performed, and he'd done so in a trial and lead up to it as well, Michael. So I don't think I could be getting involved in the shorts around who was clearly the best 2-year-old last year, but things can change pretty quickly in the young trotting ranks, and it's a big step from 2 to 3, particularly if you learn some manners for a few of these.
Yeah, well, I think he was always going to be a better 3-year-old because he's such a meat of a horse. But I'm not worried about him missing the trial fitness-wise, because he'd be working with higher power at home. He'd be working with good horses at home. But I'm worried about it mentally. He can be quite a jughead, and I'm just worried that he might be not as tuned into things early. Higher Power's a funny horse because I don't really like him much, but I know the stable love him, and you're getting 95 cents on the dollar for one horse and you're getting $3.80 profit margin for the other horse. And they rate them relatively equal this week because Higher Power has had a trial. So as a betting proposition, you can make a really strong case. You've got to presume Higher Power's going to trot all the way. And if you do that, you could back him to win, but you can also back him top 2, Matt, where there's still a really good profit margin for you, thinking that if meant to be beats him, you're still getting a decent collect. All last season, Scott Phelan wanted to tell me Higher Power is as good as meant to be. I'm not going to say he's lying.
Britt, couple of good races at Addington. First of those for the 3-year-old fillies. Group 1 winner, Captain's Mistress, returns, and she's looked pretty good publicly so far.
Well, we saw Excuse Me earlier on. Guess what? She's a descendant of that line. It's just an amazing family. But she is going to be very hard to beat despite the smaller field. But in the Age Trotters Classic, we've got the big field here. And all of the power looks to be from those off handicaps, Greg. But it's never quite that easy, particularly with the traffic that they're going to encounter.
No, exactly. Mighty Logan returns. Of course, he ran second to Just Believe, and a Dominion starts off a back mark and has trolled up okay. But that's going to be one heck of a run race. Eurostyle was very good in a fresh condition too, Matthew.
Mind you, I put you guys crook there. We were going with the Trotters first of all. Michael, those couple of races from Addington, 3-year-old fillies and that Trot, pick a couple out for us.
I can tell you that the preview on hrnz.co.nz on Friday morning will say this. Nathan Williamson saying, yep, Captain's Mistress, haven't been able to get the lead-up races in, but she'll still be too good. I think she'll win. So that's what it's going to be all over the country. Websites, papers, Friday morning. You can bet accordingly because Nathan Williamson, not Matthew, Nathan is very confident his filly's ready to go, and then she'll be on the plane to Auckland for the Oaks.
And Greg, quickly, Methven on Sunday. We've got the Roseland Racing Drivers' Challenge with drivers from all around the country and the Mount Hutt Cup, and a big race here decision-wise for Brendan Hill with what they do with Renegade.
Yeah, have a look at the size of this field and it's indicative of what we've seen through the country cups thus far. Yep, Renegade was too good at Cheviot last week, or at the Addington meeting run by the Cheviot Club. Has to start off the back mark here. It will not be easy. Woodbine Rocks will be very competitive, I would think, with that win at Addington on Sunday to give him a little bit more confidence. But the back mark of 40 metres will make it extremely difficult for Renegade and will determine where he goes next. And just ahead of him, Double Time racing well, Tanzania. We've seen these horses plenty of times.
Michael, we've got to go. What's your best bet?
I like a horse who should have won on debut, something Noir, Cheval Noir, at race 3 at Alexander Park. And I can give you a breaking news update. Matt Peden from Harness Racing New Zealand has texted me, said, we looked into a bonus. It was too expensive. We might look at getting a sponsor for a bonus to keep all those horses up and running this time next year. They are very keen to make this thing work.
Your best, Greg?
Francent for me, race number 8 at Addington, racing really well, should take all sorts of beating.
Britt?
Happy to be with Muscle Mountain, that $3 currently available. I'm hoping that he can find the front and prove too good.
Well, I can stop a train. Let's see if Craig and I together, I'm sure between us we might be able to stop a train. Michael, thanks for your time.
See you next week.
All right, Greg. Britt? See you next week.
Awesome. Hey, don't forget about that Gavel House auction too. There's quite a nice mare, Cullen Who. I see the Brecken team, who have just bought I Love a Bubbles back from Australia too, just made the latest bid, so it'll get past 6 figures.
Beautiful. All right, we'll catch you all next week in 7 days' time here on The Box Seat.